Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound. It does. Well, I have to start again. After nearly like 150 episodes, sometimes it still happens. Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound. It is our regular video interview Sunday, but as you know, we never have regular bands or people here on the show. I am very happy to have one of the band members here with me from Sleepbomb. If you have been following our little web scene closely, you will have seen that we did a lot of stuff for the band for one reason only. I love them. You know, for me, the post-metal record of the year, for sure. And saying that in a year when Swans brought out a new album, that means something. So I'm very happy to have Tim here on the show with me. Tim, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you. And thank you for the kind words.
It's just the truth. It's just the truth. So, Tim, first of all, we always ask that. What is the kind of band merch or shirt, please no pants, of a band that you are wearing today? I see a hoodie there. That might be something.
It's actually a Hilong hoodie. Yeah.
Ooh, so it is this Scandinavian, how shall we say it? Primitive metal band? However we want. Yeah,
Ritual, yeah. They're very cool, but I can get away with wearing this one at work. So if I was wearing a band shirt, I have so many to choose from.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I also have a problem. What of the stuff that I got can I wear at school? So this one here, it's interesting. Nobody will notice it when seeing it. You have to be, I think you have to be very good with your eyes. I'll try to show it. It doesn't even show it at all. It's Amen-Ra. It's one of those bands that have bursted onto the scene in the last 15 years. Always good live shows.
Oh man, Amen-Ra is one of our favorites for sure. Like, I'm so glad to have gotten to catch them a few times now that they've been coming to the States.
And I think both bands share something, and that is the fact that both bands, Heilung and Amen-Ra, they are able to get their audience in some kind of a trance, right? You know.
Yeah. Like an ecstatic state. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that also something that you strive for when you perform your stuff?
Sometimes. I mean, you know, there's definitely a element of, you know, repetition and drone that we aim for. I mean, we're doing film, you know, film scores.
Yeah.
So, but there's, you know, so you want it to be sort of an immersive experience. But occasionally we do stuff where it's more about, you know, the music rather than the film, you know, in clubs and stuff. And then we modify things a little bit to kind of get that, you know, I mean, for me, there's, and I think for the other members of the band, there's definitely I wouldn't call it a ritual element because we're not aiming for that, but definitely the drone, you know, music as drugs, you know.
Yeah.
That state is, I think, important.
Yeah, and on the other hand, just as you said, you know, it would be kind of counterproductive if you put your audience into some kind of trance like sleep while at the same time you're showing a movie in the background, of course.
Yes.
Come to talk about, you know, your performance. I mean, you're not the first ones to do that. I mean, basically the live scoring to movies is as old as movies themselves, because of course,
Absolutely.
we're talking about movies from the silent era. We'll come to the new one that you did in a few moments. But of course, people shall also watch the movie. Now, as you do this so brilliantly, what is more important for you when you're doing these kinds of shows? To underline certain things about the movie, or to use the movie as an additional element to your music?
When we're scoring the films proper, we're definitely in the role of an orchestra, you know. So, and the word I like to use is we're trying to recontextualize the films a bit. So I like to whip that one out a lot, where the music is changing how the viewer views the film or experiences the film, because music and sound is just a huge part of the filmic experience. But we're definitely, when we're like in the theater and we're showing a feature film, it's definitely us supporting the film rather than the visuals supporting the music. Although, I mean, ideally, it's sort of a gestalt at the end. And then when we're playing like in a club or something, we usually do like a montage of scenes, or sometimes I'll edit together like a whole bunch of different footage, sometimes layered. And then it's very much more the visuals supporting the music.
When you do those club shows where you are not scoring a movie, you then, I guess, take music from all your releases, right?
Yeah. So, like, we have a show in a couple of weeks at Bottom of the Hill here in the city where we're going to be using like a big chunk of I call it the occult edit. It's a lot of stuff like Kenneth Anger and Haxan and a few other films with most of the audio removed. The Witch, and one of my favorites for visuals, Begotten, which is a great film, but you sort of have to cut out the really extreme parts for general audiences.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a funny story about using Begotten, but I'll.
We'll come to that in a moment. I'll remind you.
And then we're doing like a couple of tracks from Caligari, a couple of tracks from Night of the Living Dead, one that we're bringing in from our Nosferatu score, and then one that's part of the Conan score that we tend to use as a closer for club shows. So, but yeah, it's very much the visuals supporting the music in that case.
In that case, then, yeah. You wanted to tell us a nice story about Begotten, so feel free to share.
Oh. Well, in case, have you seen Begotten?
I have.
For the viewers that, yeah, it just, the first time I cut this footage together, we were doing this sort of like ironic Black Easter Mass show where we've actually been asked to do like a big drone set as a sort of intro thing. And like I'd cut together all this footage and layered big chunks of Begotten over it. So it's very like sort of cutting in and out. It wasn't just it wasn't cutting in and out, but like depending on how the footage behind it worked, like it was either more visible or less. And we're rehearsing this for the first time, just looking at the film. And first the guitars go silent, and then like the rest, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever, and the whole band ends up stopping, and they're just sort of like looking up at the screen that we have in our rehearsal studio, like mouths agape, like and I was like, okay, I'll cut that part out. So had to edit it a little bit more to remove some of the begotten footage, but it was pretty funny. Like,
So I assume that basically all members of a band are also in some way or another film geeks, right?
oh yes, you can definitely say that again. Charlie is Charlie is one of the two founding members of the project. And the film thing has been a part of Sleepbomb since the beginning. So Mark Jones and Charlie, when they were first starting out, they were Mark had done some. Mark and I used to play in an industrial band down in Monterey. And we used a lot of films for visuals back then, and he'd done some other things set to film. And like from the very first show, which was the Cabinet of Caligari back in the day, in 2003. And yeah, so it's always been part of the film. And Charlie is a bartender, and he's notorious for always playing films during his shifts. Like, yeah, actually is pretty well known for it in the Bay Area. So he's got a huge DVD collection, and everybody else is also very into film.
So you've just mentioned that the first live score you did was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is, of course, also the new record, which is out on Koolarrow Records and Consouling Sounds. For all those who have not listened to the record yet, please do so. There is also a Blu-ray version available, right, where one can basically watch the movie and hear your score, right?
Yes, we can get away with that one because of Caligari's public domain status.
Yeah.
In most of the world, I think actually we might get into a little bit of trouble in Germany about that one.
But as I order in Belgium, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's just Germany where it's copyright.
It could
but
be. It could be.
That can because they've got different copyright laws than
we do.
The US.
And I don't know if it's already public domain in Germany. But my question is, how did it come that it took you more or less 20 years to get it onto tape?
That is a pretty long story. So,
don't cut it short. Give us all the gory details.
For the first 10 years or so, Sleepbomb was essentially like an improv casual project where we'd get together, a few times a year, pick a film, and we do like a live thing, usually at like an art gallery, or there's a bar in San Francisco called the Zeitgeist that several of the band members worked at, that had a big beer garden, and we do stuff out in their beer garden. And it was very casual. Like, we had lots of people coming in and out, and like sitting in for like a show. And we did record some stuff probably 2008, I want to say, that one of these days I need to go back through the tracks and figure out whether or not it's worth. I think there's some good stuff in there, but wow, I'd actually forgotten I was sitting on those sessions. But we went into the and recorded some stuff, but it was the same sort of thing. It was really improv. And then around 2013, we sort of took a break for about a year because we had an out of town thing that didn't go very well. And there was a lot of drama, not with me, but, and then when we got back together, Charlie and I sort of took over the direction of the band because we wanted to get a lot more structured and we wanted to do more with it. And that leads us to here. So really we're sort of Sleepbomb 2.0 these days, where we have formal scores for films where it's actually a set thing and everybody has parts and it's the same every time. Pretty much. And then we were actually planning to do a whole lot of stuff in 2020, including recording, but then this thing happened, and all of a sudden we were stuck in our houses for a year. And at the time, our writing process was really based around jamming in the rehearsal studio and then sort of going like, oh, that's cool, let's develop that into a scene. And that doesn't really work when the only contact we're having is we tried doing something where like people would record a part and then other people would, and it just didn't work. Doing it like sort of piecemeal. And then when we got back from the pandemic, we had some lineup changes. We thought that we hadn't lost anybody, and then we wrote Caligari, and then last year in 2022 we actually lost like half the band. We had a second drummer who also played violin, and our electric saw player, and a second guitarist, and they all had to take off for one reason or another. And again, no drama. It's really just, personal stuff. And so we were down to like this sort of core 3-piece mid 22. And we're kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is a little sparse given that we're used to having this big wall of sound thing. And then I ran into Claire, literally just, one of those serendipitous meetings. And she ended up joining the band. But because of what she's doing, we had to rearrange and rewrite a few things. And then eventually we actually got around to recording something. But the idea of recording we have recorded before. We have a couple of one like sort of low-end demo and sort of it's a record or a high-end demo that we actually put out right at the pandemic. But the idea of recording a full score has been on our minds for a long time, and we thought Caligari would be the good first starting point because we were already all up on it. And then we're doing Night of the Living Dead next.
It's already a very good perspective to have.
Yeah.
Why Caligari?
We also, partially because that's what we were working on when Claire joined. So it was the easiest thing to
No, I also
adapt.
meant like, why 20 years ago? Why Caligari? Why did a band from the Bay Area choose a German experimentalist movie from 1920 something?
Yeah. I believe 1920 or 21. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't privy to that particular conversation because I didn't join the band until a year after that.
Okay.
But and Charlie, our friends of mine, and I've heard them talk about it a bunch. And and the German expressionist thing is, they're great visually. Like that whole genre is just, amazing. Like they're great films to start with.
Yeah.
So it's like they're this solid foundation. I mean, there's a reason that there's like a fair number of musicians that have done scores for Caligari and Nosferatu and Metropolis, because they're just they're timeless classics, and they're great visuals, especially I mean, Caligari is the one that sort of kicked all the crazy set design and just I mean, a lot of it's the set design and the acting, and they're just really good films, and I think they picked Caligari probably because the length, it's a little bit shorter than Metropolis or Nosferatu. So short enough that on the tour we just got back from, we actually did it in a couple of club settings because we're working with a 63-minute cut, whereas you can't really do a 90-minute film in a club, without seats and stuff. It's a lot.
But there must be sorry again for everybody who's watching. There must be a problem with the with the tower where the Wi-Fi comes from. So I just had to switch to the landline. I hope it works. You said that a 63, of course, a 63-minute cut of Caligari is better than a 100-minute version of Metropolis. Also, of course, storytelling wise, I guess that. But I understand what you mean. At the same time, what I like about your score for Caligari is that, I mean, like movies from the 90s, they have a certain kind of sparkle to the soundtrack, right? Whereas even if it's a bleak soundtrack, it is still a little plings and plungs, and it's a little shinier than, let's say, Halloween, or let's say The Exorcist. It's not as dark musically. So you keep that sparkle, but at the same time, it sounds very much like 2022, 2023, which is very, very interesting. How do you go about when you write that stuff? I mean, like, I guess, first of all of you by then have seen the movie multiple times.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, by the time we're done writing, we've seen the movie probably more than we want to. Although it's interesting with like, even after seeing some of these films like 100 times, you're still seeing new details in the mise en scène, and just like seeing how things line up. It's really cool. But so when we got back from the pandemic, we actually changed up the writing process a little bit. And Charlie and I sat down and reviewed hours of recorded rehearsals. I went through and sort of picked out all the stuff that was jams, basically, that I thought were cool. And then we listened to a whole bunch of that stuff. And then we sat down and started writing just the two of us. And working off that and then bringing in new stuff. And then we'd do that on Fridays, and then we always rehearse with the band on Sundays and Mondays. So we'd write on Fridays, and then on Sundays we'd show up and be like, hey, Rob and Claire, once she joined, like, what do you think of this? You know, and sort of fling it at them. And still there.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. So you fling it at them, and then?
And then we work it out. Basically, we we play it against the scene of the film that we're thinking of, and we sort of chunk out the film literally in Pro Tools to where we're playing the film back, and it's like once the scene is sort of set, we can see visually like what we need to do to fill out the film. And when we're doing that writing, we're looking at the content of the scene and the sort of tone that we want to go for. I mean, there's definitely a sort of Sleepbomb vibe, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's that things are going to sound the same. Like Caligari is actually one of the more coherent, like cohesive things that we've done, because we sort of did it all as a big block, and it wasn't like sort of iterated over years. Whereas like our scored Nosferatu and Metropolis, especially Metropolis, has some, I mean, it has like a little synthwave section and a couple of other things. And Night of the Living Dead is also a little bit more rockier, I want to say. It has some like almost punky bits in it, because hey, it's Night of the Living Dead. But it's still Sleepbomb. So, did that answer?
How do you go about when you score a movie that is not a silent movie, like Conan, Night of the Living Dead? Do you then work your music around the dialogue or underneath it, or do you blend it out?
So you froze up a little bit there.
Okay, but if you heard my question?
I think I got what you're asking, which is basically how to deal with the films that have dialogue.
Exactly.
So, we have two films that we have scores for that have dialogue. So Night of the Living Dead and Conan the Barbarian, with Arnold, not the terrible remake. Sorry to those of you that like the terrible remake.
No, not sorry. No.
But so basically my background is as a sound
to put it in a movie nutshell, there can only be one Conan.
Yes, I like it.
Yes, thank you. Good.
Back again.
Yeah, back again. I don't know what's wrong. So sorry, let's
okay.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, so my background's as a sound editor for film. I don't do that right now. very much outside of band stuff. But so I already have the tools and plugins and stuff to manipulate the soundtrack of the films with dialogue to separate out the stuff. But mostly it's a lot of really tedious work.
Yeah.
And but it only has to be done, we only need, once it's done for a film, it's done. So which is nice.
Which also brings me to another question. Which also brings me to another question, that basically when you do the live screenings and when you score the movies, then there is basically not a lot of room for improv, right? There is not a lot of room for going astray here or there.
Not the way that we're doing it right now. But I mean, there's certainly times where, like, especially when we're writing, when we're in the process of writing something, where we might just be like, okay, this is going to be an improv section. And there's several, like, we actually have a score, a live show of Nosferatu up on our Bandcamp that from a few years back, where we were in the middle of writing it and they'd asked us to do Nosferatu, and we're like, okay, no problem. And there's like, 3 or 4 sections that are sort of like, these are what you would see now in the Nosferatu score. And then there's parts where it's just like improv, ambient, or improv. Ambient's the wrong word, just improv. And like, we know that it's funny because I was just listening to that yesterday, because we're revisiting a piece from that for the show on the 8th that none of us could actually remember because we hadn't played it in 2 years. But and like, I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh wow, there's a bunch of cool stuff in here from the improv sections that we should probably look at and maybe structure into something formal for something else. But these days, yeah, we're generally not doing too much theatrical screenings where the score isn't like pretty much set in stone. Aside from things like, we have like the noisy bits in Caligari, the sort of ambient trails and stuff, those are pretty much it. Like, if you saw it live, it's not going to sound how it does in the record, because we're a couple of us might be doing stuff from the record, and then a couple others might be just improvising. So
when you go on tour or when you do those shows, I mean, like, normally you're 4 people, right? When you're on tour, are you more than 4?
No, just 4 musicians, me, Claire, Charlie, and Rob, and then Brown Hughes is our like technical guy. And we literally can't play live without him, because we actually we're doing our own production most of the time. So when we roll into a theater, we're also bringing in our sound system and all of our microphones and stuff. So we run a very turnkey operation. So, and even when we were playing clubs on this last tour, we were still bringing in our stuff. And just using their system, basically like we were a DJ or something, just feeding them a stereo pair. So
you've mentioned it already, there are a lot of different elements in the sound of Sleepbomb. It can be noisier, it can be a little bit more punkish, there's a lot of drone, there's a lot of what people would call post-metal. But there is a wide variety. Does that also, in a way, reflect the stuff that you guys listen to?
I would say yes. Yeah. Charlie and I spend a lot of time going to shows together. The Roadburn thing, of course. We love the shout out that y'all gave about Roadburn.
I didn't do that without a purpose.
Yeah. I mean,
would that be a dream come true? Would that be a dream come true? Doing a film show at Roadburn?
Yes. I mean, honestly, I don't know what we would do after that. It would be like, okay, well, we're done.
You can do
not really.
You could do it like Sprain did it this year. They released, apart from your album, but for me, the album of the year, and called it quits 3 weeks after. I'm like, that is peaking at the right point of time. But apart from a joke, so you guys listen to a lot of different music, right?
Yeah. We're we're super musically diverse. Neither Charlie or I has a ton of formal musical training, but I mean, just the sheer amount of music that we listen to, and also Claire, I mean, and Rob, and everybody's into different stuff as well. I'm Rob's really into, Americana and classical stuff, like classical folk and things. Claire's a little bit punkier than we are. But she's also, we all agree on things like Amun Ra and, Sun and, just like when we were driving up, when we were on tour recently, everybody was really happy with the musical selections and which were just my musical selections because I was driving all the time. So until Charlie and I got into a little D'Antwoord, and a couple people weren't too into that. But just the first records.
Yeah. But is there or are there bands that you can all agree on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like Neurosis, that's a big one. They're the local, the huge local touch point. Sun is a big touch point for Charlie and I. Earth, definitely. Melvin, Boris. Let's see. I mean, I'm the big black metal guy in the band. And I mean, Amun Ra is also a big one recently. But Low is a big one for a lot of us. I mean, very sad there. Yeah, last year wasn't a great year for my favorite bands. Charlie and I are really into current Ulver, and Claire's really into old Ulver. But I mean, things like Drone Mechanics and some of their live records, I would say, are really good touch points. There's just so many good bands, and we drag Cult of Luna. That's a good one.
That might be one of the best live bands you can ever see. Cult of Luna.
Oh, Cult of Luna. Man,
there are times when I cannot listen to the records, but I go to every show that I can. It's like,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that thing that Johannes did with Perturbator at
yeah,
Roadburn a couple of
Final
years
Light. Yeah.
ago. Oh, so good.
If anybody wants to know a little bit more about some of the acts that Tim just mentioned, go and check our archive here on YouTube or check our website. You will find interviews with Colin from Amun-Ra, 2 with Colin from Amun-Ra. We have interviews with the Sun Guys. We had Dale Crover from the Melvins. If you want to know what Steve Fontill is up to, check out our website. And you've also mentioned like 2 or 3 people that I still would love to interview. One of them is scheduled to be released next year. I cannot say who. But I can say that one wet dream that I would still love to do would be Ulfer. Doing an interview with Christian would be a dream come true. And then is there also, I mean, like with Sleepbomb, we also have to talk about movies. So are there movies that you all can agree on?
Oh, yeah.
Apart from the ones that you've scored.
Yeah. You know, we'd really like to do The Thing at some point. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little weird, you know, stepping on Ennio Morricone's score, but I think we'd do the film justice. I don't know if Carpenter would be into it though. He might be. He's pretty nifty. You know, that one would definitely be getting into some right stuff. You know, we're already having to deal with that with a couple of the films. For you know, some of the older stuff, I know that we've bantered around doing a full score for Haxan, which is another one of those sort of like classic ones. It's not German Expressionism, but it's a cool film and it's got the occult thing going on. I'm not entirely sure how well it would work for one of our scores. We'd probably have to make it a little bit more free form than we have been, just because of the structure of the film. And let me see. I mean, there's been a few that we've talked about recently, and I'm trying to remember if it's stuff that I was sort of jonesing to do, or if it was more of a group discussion. I know we've talked about The Thing. You know, Carl Theodor Dreyer's, you know, The Passion of Joan of Arc. I personally would like to do. I don't know how many other folks in the band have seen it, but I think that might be something that might be a Tim Gotch side project, because it's a bit heavy for our usual sort of genre stuff. Yeah, we've been so caught up in the backlog. You know, we have this, like, you know, even if we wanted to do a new film, we probably aren't going to be getting to it for a couple of years, because we're working on you know, the Caligari release cycle right now, but at the same time we're also recording Night of the Living Dead, which we're hoping to put out next summer, and then like as soon as we've finished recording that, we're going to be working on Nosferatu, which, you know, so but we're definitely aiming for Night of the Living Dead next summer. Although it has to be a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more albumy, just because of the structure of the film.
Yep.
Whereas the Caligari CD, if you had the correct cut of Caligari, you could actually put it up against it and it would line up. Well, it's not so much the correct cut. Like if you had the Kino 4K restoration cut and then took it and changed the frame rate, it would match up. Because they slowed the frame rate down and it made it longer. And then we're working on Nosferatu, and then we have Metropolis, and then hopefully, well, we'll be working on Conan. It seems a lot of the Conan stuff has already been recorded, some of it twice on the other 2 records that are out. So it seems right to leave that one to the end. So, but yeah, maybe by that point we'll have enough clout that we can, hit up John Carpenter and be like, so hey, the thing, we want to do this.
Yeah. But it sounds like plans for at least 2028, right? So on a lot of years.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, we're also next year we're probably going to put out like a EP or LP, more of like songs, stuff that isn't score music, because we like doing stuff with vocals occasionally. Like, so yeah, we're busy bees over here for sure.
Good. And of course, I cannot let you, busy bee, leave the Veil of Sound interview without having to stand the infamous quickfire round. You'll always get 2 alternatives, have to choose, like, what do you like more? AC versus DC, black versus white, VAs versus the Giants, something like that. So, and of course, for you, I aimed for a lot of music, but also for, at the same time, a lot of movie questions. So let's start off with the movies. Something easy. What do you prefer? Conan? Which character do you prefer? Conan or Red Sonja?
Oh, Conan. That's a pretty easy one.
If you were to do let's say, a horror movie, would you rather do the classic Exorcist or the, by now, I think, classic Insidious?
Oh, Exorcist for sure. That's actually a good one. Yeah. Actually, looping back to your earlier question, I know we've talked about doing The Shining.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For a lot of post-metal and post-rock, the drummer is one of the most important persons because he drives music and tells a story, at least in my perspective. Therefore, I'll give you 2 bands that are heavy on drumming. Pelican versus ISIS.
Ooh. ISIS. Yeah.
A little bit more post-rock than post-metal. Ranges or Godspeed You Black Emperor?
Godspeed You Black Emperor. Who,
because of the music or because of the movies behind it?
Both. And I can't believe I didn't cite them as one of our influences earlier.
That would have been too obvious, eh?
They really are one of our biggest influences.
I totally believe so, but I also say it is obvious. I mean, like, there is a similar, no, there is not a similar, there is an adjacent kind of idea with their visuals, but it's not the same, of course.
Dynamic range.
Yeah. Let's go back to movies. And you will understand the bridge. For everybody who doesn't, just look it up, time of pampering is over. Shadow of a Vampire versus Nosferatu.
Which version of Nosferatu?
The original one.
Oh, that's a...
I'm not talking about Kinski.
Yeah. I mean, I love Shadow of the Vampire, but I'd have to go with the OG.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, look it up as long as we're mentioning Begotten, Shadow of the Vampires. A lot of fun.
Definitely, isn't it? Two directors. Cronenberg versus Lynch.
Ooh. Well, from an that's really tough. Lynch for me. But Cronenberg is, I mean, Lynch only has like, well, this much over Cronenberg. Yeah, they're both two incredibly influential and amazing directors.
Yeah. And it's still amazing that a lot of people don't get them over here in Europe. I know in the States it's different, but over here, I don't know why. As you come from the Bay Area, Dead Kennedys versus Neurosis.
Neurosis. But I mean, Dead Kennedys were an extremely important band to me when I was younger. But Neurosis by far has had the like greater influence on me over the years.
I can see that. Yeah, would be the same for me. Two bands that were both on one of my all-time favorite labels, Hydra Head. Botch versus These Arms Are Snakes.
Ooh. Botch.
Going back to, yeah.
It's kind of 50-50. Yeah. I mean, I really like These Arms Are Snakes too.
Yeah.
That reminds me that Botch is actually playing here in a couple of days.
Yeah, I just got my ticket for next year when we're going to play around here.
Nice.
I'll give you two black and white classics. I think, if I remember correctly, you would basically only score one of them because the other is non-silent. Chaplin, Modern Times versus The Great Dictators. Dictator, sorry.
Ooh. Modern Times. I mean, it's such a beautiful classic. You know. Yeah, lovely film.
Two science fiction movies that are both known for, first of all, being excellent movies, and second of all, being known for amazing soundtracks. But if you could do one of them with your band, which one would you rather do? 2001: A Space Odyssey or Blade Runner?
Well, we've actually done portions of both.
I know, but I want you to tell me which one would you do in full?
In full, probably 2001. I think that would probably work better overall. And yeah, I mean, and it's hard to step on the Vangelis soundtrack, although we definitely have several times. So, I mean, we'd love to do both of them, but 2001 would probably be a little bit more in tune with our current, with the current version of Sleepbomb.
Yeah, the epic grandeur of it, right? If you had to choose one soundtrack to listen to, which one would you choose? Because that is where I would be even more torn than which movie.
2001 and Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I'd have to call it for Blade Runner. That's actually a score that I've listened to just because many times. 2001, like, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, it's also great, but I never think of it as being like a standalone listen. You know?
No, that's true.
And some of the music in it, obviously, I mean, all the Holst and, you know, I mean, like I've definitely like sat down and listened to that, but not in the
As a whole.
context of listening to 2001 thing. Yeah.
Last two about music. I mean, like, you come from a city of hippies, right? So, you know, of a Bay Area. Which classic rock band, or however we want to call it, would you rather listen to right now? The Grateful Dead or Jefferson Airplane?
Jefferson Airplane. I've never been a big Grateful Dead fan.
Really?
However, Charlie has actually gotten quite into the Grateful Dead recently. And I know that they did a lot of cool stuff that's actually quite in the vein of some of the, you know, jam aspect of what we occasionally. But yeah, and I've never been a big Grateful Dead fan. I went to some Grateful Dead shows, but mostly just to buy LSD in the parking lots. So that used to be a thing. Well, this was in the 80s.
And the last one, which I give you only because you mentioned both bands, and I know you will say to me it's a hard one, but Sun versus Amen-Ra.
Oof.
Let's say right now, not in general, but right now, which one would you rather listen to?
Right this moment?
Right this moment.
Amen-Ra. Yeah, I'm a little too sleepy for Sun, I think. Right this moment.
Yeah. For transparency's sakes, when we are recording this, it's right now it's a little bit after 11 a.m. San Francisco time, so that's why he says he's too sleepy. So, Tim, thanks for all the answers. I have to say once again, I cannot put into words how much I like the record, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. If any one of you hasn't checked that one out by now, please do so, because it's an amazing record. And if you get the chance to buy the Blu-ray version, also do so. If you like what we do here on the Veil of Sound, then please give us a subscription, give us a comment, tell us which movies you would like Sleepbomb to score sometime in 2027, sometime in 2028. I'm sure they'll pick it up. Or if you want to follow us on our socials, please do so on Facebook or on Instagram. And if you want to support us a little bit more, you can find us on Patreon as well. Now, Tim, for you, chance for final last words.
Oh, well, thank you for having us. And I mean, it's been a lovely conversation. And hopefully we can continue it at Roadburn. Yeah.
Hopefully. It would be my pleasure. It would be. So I hope you have a great day and don't get too sleepy. So take care of yourself, man. Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care.